Hello and welcome to the third part of my series of running trains on my model railway. In this video I shall be running my LMS engines. The Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Class 21s were often known as pugs, likely due to their somewhat squashed appearance. 60 of these little 040s were produced between 1886 and 1910. Their small size made them ideal for shunting in tight dockyards. The very first was withdrawn in 1910. 23 survived into British Railways ownership in 1948. They were all withdrawn by 1964. Luckily, 2 have survived into preservation. The Caledonian 264s are another class of engine that picked up the nickname Pug. 34 were built between 1885 and 1908, and they mostly worked in Glasgow. The last was withdrawn by 1962, with none surviving into preservation. The class acquired fame with the ever-iconic Hornby Smoky Joe model that has served as a gateway into model railways for many people. The Fowler 3F, often known as Ginty, was a class of 422 060s built between 1924 and 1931. They were all withdrawn by British Railways between 1959 and 1967. 9 have survived into preservation. The Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Class 5s were designed by John Aspinall. 310 were built between 1889 and 1911 for local passenger work. Withdrawals began in 1927 and ended in 1961. A single example has survived into preservation. The 3Fs were a large family of several different 060 goods engine classes from the Midland Railway. Between 1875 and 1908, some 935 engines were built to the same general design. They were withdrawn between 1925 and 1964. None were preserved. The 4Fs were designed by Henry Fowler for goods work. 575 would be built between 1924 and 1941. They were withdrawn between 1959 and 1966. 3 of them have been preserved. The 2 MT moguls, alongside a closely related Prairie, were designed by Henry Ivett for mixed traffic work. 128 were built between 1946 and 1953. They picked up the nickname Mickey Mouse during their time in service. Withdrawals started in 1961 and all of them had gone by 1967. 7 have been preserved. The 4MT was another design of Ivett Mogul, and has the unfortunate reputation of one of the ugliest steam engines in Great Britain, Flying Pigs being a common nickname. Regardless of what enthusiasts thought of their appearance, 162 were built between 1947 and 1952. They were all withdrawn between 1963 and 1968. A single example has survived into preservation. The crabs were designed by George Hughes for the LMS for mixed traffic work. 245 were built between 1926 and 1932. There have been 2 suggestions for how the crabs acquired their name. Some believe that it is due to their cylinders and motion having vague resemblance to a crab's claws. Another theory is that their name comes from their scuttling motion when moving. They were withdrawn between 1961 and 1967. 2 are preserved, with a third being mostly complete, albeit disassembled and seemingly stuck in limbo. The 8Fs were designed by William Stanier as heavy freight engines. 852 were built between 1935 and 1946. It should be noted that not all of them were LMS examples. During the war years, many were used to bolster goods work on the Southern, LNER and GWR. Many were also built for the War Department and were sent to the Middle East. 23 of them have the rather unusual fate of being lost at sea during the war. The most famous sunken examples being the two on the SS Thistlegorm, now at the bottom of the Red Sea. Over 600 would survive into British Railways ownership. They were all withdrawn between 1960 and 1968. 12 are preserved in Britain. The Midland Railway 1000 class are a group of 45 440 passenger locomotives designed by Samuel Johnson. They are noteworthy for using a compound arrangement for the cylinders, a single high-pressure cylinder in the middle and two low-pressure ones on the outside. The first one built, number 1000, is the sole survivor, now owned by the National Railway Museum. The Royal Scots were a class of 460 10-wheeler designed by Henry Fowler for express passenger work. 70 were built between 1927 and 1930. They were all rebuilt with new boilers and cylinders between 1943 and 1955. They were withdrawn between 1962 and 1966. Two have survived into preservation: Royal Scot, which is actually a renamed King's Dragoon Guardsman, and Scots Guardsman. The Princess Royals were a class of 12 462 Pacifics built between 1933 and 1935. They were designed by William Stanier for the top-tier express passenger work on the West Coast Main Line. They were all withdrawn between 1961 and 1962. Two, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret Rose, have survived into preservation. The Coronations were a class of 38 462 Pacifics designed by William Stanier. Built between 1937 and 1948, they were some of Britain's most powerful steam engines. The first 10 locomotives were streamlined. 5 of these examples were used on the LMS Express passenger service, the Coronation Scot. One member of the class, Coronation, set the steam speed record at 114 miles per hour. This was later smashed by Mallard. The streamlining was removed after 1946. They were all withdrawn between 1962 and 1964. 3 have survived into preservation, with one of them, Duchess of Hamilton, having the streamlining added back on. Thank you for watching.